years later, I did an episode of X-Files, and I remember meeting David, and I said, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you," and he said, "No, we actually work together." No, I don't think we have. And he reminded me which role he played, and he was at my wedding. I had no idea. I was blown away. That was so good.
You know, that's his picture in the Miss Twin Peaks. The Miss Twin Peaks contest, that poster.
Yeah. And I was like, you're so
David
much
in
prettier than that.
It's really pretty.
Speaking of food, which is one of the most important things to an actor on a set, the catering on Twin Peaks, as I recall, was perhaps the best I've ever experienced. I could hardly wait for lunch every day.
And Caleb, you directed David in one of those episodes, right? Was he not in one of those? None? Never?
Yes, he is.
David is undirectable.
Does anyone have any questions? Thoroughly exhausted.
I don't want to go all the way. She's right here. I just wanted to know how hard it was to work with one eye covered. I mean, it must have been difficult to not have that depth of perception. We had a sample earlier.
Here's one of my best jokes on you, Wendy, stories, but it was tricky. I mean, it was, and I would get headaches, and it would, and then one day I was mentioning, this is really, and maybe I was whimpering a little bit, and Mark said, Wendy. And then I designed my own eye patch for the second season. I designed my own. I used an elastic, and you made the eye patch a little bit smaller because my head's a little smaller than the great big thing, and so that was easier to use. And when the camera wasn't rolling, that's your answer to that. My favorite thing about that was to use I just decided this. I didn't even talk to anybody about it, but I decided for myself that Nadine didn't know she was wearing an eye patch. Somehow, like she thought she was 18. There was no, to her, I don't know, somehow she could just blot out that she had to wear an eye patch. And the only time she really noticed it was when her other eye closed. So there was one time when I was having a therapy session with Big Ed, because we were, breaking up for weed, and Dr. Jacoby is counseling us, and I winked at Big Ed. I winked at him, and then I went. So that while they're talking, and you can see me, I'm sort of behind them, I was sort of going. and then later, I just lounged up. I think I'm going blind. So I just decided that, I couldn't, unless I winked at you and then it was, but then I forget that, so it'd be fun. Does that answer your question?
That's a wonderful answer. I just thought maybe they could make it so you could kind of see through it and then it wouldn't have.
Well, the stunt woman, this amazing gymnast, who did the trying out for cheerleader, I could sort of go in to I did a cartwheel, sort of so I could go into it and then it could come out of it. But between that, then they cut away and she'd go, boing, 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 over to the thing, and then they come back to me and I'd go, so she had an eye patch that had this little, it was like a kind of lace, little lace that they made black, and so it was a trick, but that would have worked for me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Robin, tell us about making the episode Psych.
Oh, that was so much fun. That was such a wonderful reunion with everyone. I was just telling Kimmy that I worked with Ray so many times since then, but we actually never had any scenes together in Twin Peaks. But it was so fantastic, and on set they had the disc. So I mean, of all the of both seasons. So I was watching it. This show is so amazing. But it was a wonderful, wonderful reunion, and the music, and getting to I got to dance like Audrey. It was great.
But tell us about how that episode came together in the first place.
Good question. They just called and told me they were doing a parody of Twin Peaks and wanted to know if I was available to do it, and I was. And got to see Dana and what else was in it?
Cheryl Lee.
Oh, Sherilyn. That's right. Sherilyn, who I never worked with either. Sherilyn. I didn't get to see her either, but yeah, I thought it was really fun. Did you see it?
It was great.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
I went up there last July. Can I interrupt?
Of course.
Jennifer was directing a couple of episodes, and I took my niece, that's her favorite show, up there for her graduation present to the set of Psych, and we spent the whole day on location. What a great show. And
Nice people.
yeah, really nice people. And he came up to me. What's his name?
James Redding.
James was talking to me when we first were talking, and he was explaining how they ran out of money before they got to me, and how they had written a scene. He and Dana wrote this whole scene about how somebody was explaining something up the hall, and then to the right, not the first right, the second right. That didn't cut out, and I just looked at him and said, "Is that supposed to make me feel better?"
What about the scene
It's very nice. I actually hurt his feelings.
That's important. But this scene with Cheryl Lee when the body, oh my gosh, she was having, it was a huge trip for her to do that. And to be standing over the body, this young girl that looked just like her, and to reenact this scene straight from the show was really, and it was the fog, it just rolled in. It was really, it was special.
Canada's kind of like Twin Peaks.
Yeah, it is.
Other questions?
Ice cream?
Any parting words or stories before we let you guys go?
No, just to, I mean, it's so great to be here with everybody, and wow, what a great turnout that everybody came and you liked the show, so that's great. It was like I said, it was a labor of love, and one of those things that since then, I've done many things, and we all have, but that was a moment. There was a moment there that it all just fell into place, and it was a lot of fun. I think back, and we really did have a great time, and it was one of those things that was just very happy to be a part of.
Yeah, I would conclude the same way. I've done many projects in this long career that I've had, and I think I had more fun with Linda Merle than any other part I've ever played. It was just fantastic fun.
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
It's not about the episode we saw tonight, but what about Laura's mother? The last time we saw Laura's mother, she was like out of it, crawling down the stairs. And Laura's father was flipping out, looking in the mirror and seeing his other personality. And we've never found out why Laura's mother was crawling down the stairs, seemingly out of it. Totally.
I think you missed a couple episodes. Talk to me later. I'll fix it. And we do see Grace one last time in the show, and it's a fantastic episode that we'll see on April 14th when we get to the series finale.
I have a question. Caleb and Mary, it's been bugging me forever. Did you guys used to bring your daughters to the set? And how big were they?
Emily was about 12, and Zoe was 9. Yeah, they were very, yes. And Emily, Zoe couldn't watch it. It was too you know. But Emily watched it, but there was one story. Remember when you were doing the, you know, I think that episode of, you know, Killer Bob, you know, the mirror, you know, when Ray was looking in the mirror, but they would give a different script. Nobody knew what was going on.
Nobody knew what was going on, and there were 2 scripts, and Caleb knew.
3 scripts.
Caleb knew, and nobody else knew what was going to happen, and who, you know. And we'd gone out, I think, and I think that someone called and said something. I think left a message with Emily about Killer Bob or something. I don't know. She was so terrified. You know what that meant, you know. And so, yeah. They were big.
But it was before the days of the internet and everything, but they were really afraid that you know, of it getting out, you know, revealing about, you know, the Ray Wise character killing, you know. So it was, I think we actually did do a couple of scenes that didn't end up in the movie. I mean, now that you mention it, you were saying that we didn't do, but that was deliberate in order to throw people off, so that the decision was made. They already knew what it was going to be, but we actually shot some scenes revealing someone else as being the killer.
So can you guys talk a little bit about what that was?
About what?
About these alternate versions.
Well, they just scripted it. There was two or three. Yeah, and then they just went out, and because they didn't want anybody, like in the crew or anybody to know, so they actually shot them and we put them together.
Do you remember what they were?
I can't remember.
One of them was Ben Horn.
Well, Ben Horn,
was the killer.
But he was already arrested as the killer.
Right.
Oh yeah, let's carry that through as if he really is the killer, you know. And so you know, people, they wanted him, you know, wanted everybody.
But there's a lot. I mean, there was, especially in the first season, the level of, you know, when we would finish an episode, they had a guy that would come over to the editing room to transfer the film to send to the studio, and this guy had a mobile truck, and then he would get in there and he would set it up, and he couldn't even watch, so he had to come outside, stand outside the truck, so that nobody could, you know, nobody knew there was just, because obviously it was like Who Killed Laura Palmer was such a water cooler thing that, you know, it had to live on, so there was a great deal of, you know, stuff. People were, and I was getting calls, and people were from like my hometown newspaper, you know, would you please tell us? The truth is, I don't think anybody, we didn't know. I mean, that was the best part about it. You know,
But even in that episode where it's revealed that he was this killer, you still in the back of your mind you had the suspicion that there was really more to the story and that there were other people involved and who knew. So it was, I mean, listen, I've always felt that every movie, every story, comedy, drama, everything is a mystery, and the mystery is you as an audience want to know what happens next, and you don't know what's happened next, you know, what is going to happen next, and that's what keeps you interested. And it may be, you know, something like, you know, will she fall in love with a guy, and you know, but it's everything is a mystery, and the whole show is a mystery within mystery within mysteries. I mean, what's really amazing, because Mary Jo and I were talking about earlier, because we actually, before, you know, a couple weeks ago, we ordered the DVDs and tried to start watching because it's been so long since we've seen them. But it is amazing how duplicitous every character in this thing is. It's just really unbelievable. And yet, on the surface, are these wonderfully, you know, innocent characters. I mean, you know,
that's
Mary,
when Mary Jo's character goes. That's what it was for me.
Yeah,
It's like
that-
now there's one last person in this town that has some credibility now.
Doc and Hayward. It's like, oh my God. It's kind of like the scene in Once Upon a Time in the West where you realize that Henry Fonda is the killer, and you go, not Henry Fonda.